Barricade! Welcome everybody back to another episode of the Handsome Homebuyer Podcast. My name is Charles, a.k.a. the Handsome Homebuyer, a.k.a. Captain Permit, a.k.a.
El Judío Maravilloso.
a.k.a.
Captain Permit?
No. Really? What's the new edition? Really? If I can't go to you in time of need, who can I go to? A.k.a. the 2020 LLS Man of the Year. If you don't believe in me, who else is going to believe in me, right? Speaking of somebody, you know who you should believe in when it comes to permits?
Captain Permit.
Captain Permit. 516-513-8838. Captain Permit is crushing life right now. The board is filled. The wall is filled. Thank you, townships. Thank you, people, for trusting and believing us. If you have anything permit related, building related, violation related, give us a call, 516-513-8838. And obviously, as a bonus to all the ladies and even some of the men out there, Mike, the most handsome light-eyed man in the permit business, jacked on a level that is just unfair to the rest of us, the male gender. And obviously, if you have a house that smells like cat pee, is dated from the 1960s, has 6 inches of mold on the wall, commercial property, which I'm hoping to squeeze out of our guest today, land for development, anything real estate related, you know this. I want to buy it. I'm a good time. I'm low maintenance. We're going to have fun. I'm there with the cash, no drama. Although sometimes we all like a little drama, right? Be honest. Our Latin girls wouldn't exist, right? 516-777 sold. Matt, can I say that on air?
Sure.
The Latin girl thing?
Yeah.
I'm just checking with you,
Yeah,
being a member of the Latino community.
Yeah, it's fine. I'm not cutting that out.
All right, so great guest today. I got the stats in front of me. We're about to write it down. Born and raised in Manhasset, first generation American. He's a flipper. He was the #1 commercial agent in Douglas Elliman 2018. He's a father of 2 boys, which is huge, and we're going to delve into that right off the bat. Commercial property owner, former mortgage broker, Chris Christos Babyface Pappas.
Thank you.
Bro, it sounds like a boxer's name.
It does.
Right? It sounds like a boxer's name.
I feel like I need a robe.
Chris Christos, how's your... No, you're not. You're a lover. You're not.
No, I'm not fighting.
I can't picture you in any way, shape, or form being, like, physically aggressive with anybody.
Not physically aggressive, but I do have that Greek temper.
You are... do Greeks have tempers?
They do.
Really?
Yeah.
That I've never heard.
Yeah, well, we could get angry.
What have I heard? I mean, I feel like Greeks are very similar to Italians, which are very similar to Jews.
Yep.
Like, we as men are ultimately mama's boys.
Yes.
Right?
Absolutely.
The food's amazing. Saganaki.
I have proof of the pudding.
Do you eat a lot of Greek food?
Yeah.
Saganaki is the best thing that's ever lived.
Delicious, but it's not something you eat often.
All right, quick question, just whatever comes to mind.
Yes.
Limani or Cavo? Pick one.
Limani.
All right, I'm with you on that.
Yeah.
All right, real quick before we delve into the real estate stuff, I'm going to delve into the most important part of this podcast, which is the boys.
You want the recipe?
How did you get them?
You know, yesterday, because I was nervous coming on this, right? And
You knew I was going to hit you with the boy thing?
I knew you. I didn't know you were going to hit me with that until I listened to Jay Ciano.
Okay.
And you know what? What he said struck a chord.
That's fucking bullshit. Don't you dare go down that respect women road. Don't you dare.
I'm not going to lie.
All right, cut it. Let's get into real estate. We only keep it real on the Handsome Homebuyer podcast, all right? All right. A little bit of background on you, obviously.
Okay.
Born and raised in Manhasset,
Yes.
North Shore guy.
Yes.
Give me a little bit of background about where you grew up, how you grew up, and ultimately, we were talking before offline about how you kind of came into commercial real estate.
Sure. Went through, born and raised in Manhasset, went through the Manhasset school system, went to Hofstra afterwards, graduated in 2004.
Were we there at the same time?
2000 to 2004.
We were there at the same time.
Were we?
Yeah, I was there from wait, hold on. I graduated in 97, graduated there in 2002.
Okay, so we overlapped a little bit.
Yeah.
Finance major, finished in 2004, went into the mortgage world. And at that time, the mortgage...
You went straight from college right into the mortgage world?
Pretty much.
And this was like 2004. So this is when it was... Oh, so you got to ride that train.
For a while.
You rode the train.
But I wasn't a mortgage broker.
Okay. What were you doing?
So right off the bat, I just started in compliance, just kind of like start learning the business. And I learned it real quick, and I realized, hey, like this part's great, but I'm not making money here.
Yeah.
And I need, I learned the business real quick, and I figured out either going to become a mortgage broker, or I had a buddy whose mom worked at Greenpoint, and so I became a wholesale bank rep.
What is a wholesale bank rep?
So essentially, when the mortgage broker is going to go, they're on the retail level. They're talking to the customer on the phone. They're selling the actual loan.
Okay.
That person then needs to go find the money. So they're going to the banks and they're shopping that deal around. Whoever gives them the best deal is who's going to get that loan.
Okay.
So Greenpoint was essentially, I was paid commission and a base salary or whatever.
Okay.
And I went out and I was basically dealing with the mortgage brokers. So I had my book of clients, and I would go visit them all the time and facilitate the relationship and try to get deals out of these offices.
Nice.
So,
and these are like, so who would be an example of like an office that would send you business? Like, I'm just so the people understand.
Back then, I mean, like for instance, like Concord Mortgage was one.
Okay.
All right?
So it's
and they'd have a room full of 80 guys, for instance, just making calls and finding deals and doing business.
So essentially, you guys. So what Concord is, or any of those guys, is
just a broker.
Yeah. So they're out there and they're looking at the spread between essentially what they can sell this at and what they can lend on the street.
Correct.
And they're out there getting people to commit to a certain price point with points or whatever,
right.
And then they're looking for the cheapest deal from you, which maximizes their spread,
their profit,
and then
right.
You're going to take it.
Essentially, that's it.
When you guys, and what do you guys do with it? You then package it up?
We would package it up and then sell it off to Bear Stearns, Lehman Brothers, who's no longer there.
And then they would package it up as and it's CMBS.
Yeah.
There's a lot of layers in this shit.
Yes, there is.
So it just makes you kind of think, like, I always wonder, even knowing as much as I know about like real estate in general, like, how the hell do all those people eat? Like, what is the homeowner really paying when you really look at it to enable Concord to make money, then you to make money,
right.
Then
Bear
Bear Stearns to make money, then the ultimate, like, whoever,
the investor who's got to get a return,
fund,
or a pension fund that's got to make money.
Exactly.
As well.
That's nuts.
It is.
Are the margins really tight? It's just that there's such a high.
I haven't
dollar
been in
amount
the
so
business
crazy.
for so long. I mean, I did that from 2004 until it crashed in 2008, at which point, for some reason, I thought it was a good idea to get a real estate license.
So you were essentially a relationship guy.
Correct.
So you've been in sales and relationship building in some capacity.
From 2004.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah,
So
never
then,
really held a salary job. It was always more or less commission based.
that's interesting. So I want to talk about that for a second, because a lot of people find that unnerving.
It is.
Is it that that's the only thing you've ever done, so you were always cool with it, or like do your parents have similar kind of like backgrounds with jobs, like so that you're comfortable with? Like my father always owned businesses,
right?
So it's like all I ever knew.
Right. So yeah, my father is a physician. I retired a few years ago.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, gastroenterologist.
No kidding.
Retired about 3 years ago, and that in itself is a business if you think about it, right?
Yeah.
And my mom stayed at home and raised us.
Wow.
But as far as being on the commission base, I mean, I did have the comfort and security of being able to move back. I was staying at home after school, and I didn't have to worry about rent. And then as I met my now wife in college, and then as we got married, I mean, she has a nice position. She's a school psych in Comac school system.
Nice.
So health insurance and a base bottom line was never something I really had to worry about.
Interesting.
So that allowed me to take gambles in my career that I normally, or most people normally wouldn't have to, because they're worried about making their mortgage payment that month.
It's like Warren Buffett says, you want to be number one rule of success. Maddie, you know what the number one rule of success is? Marry the right woman.
I definitely did.
No, it sounds like it. That's cool. It all fits together.
Yeah, 100%.
So you're flying high. You're having a good time. You're moving a ton of product. Like expense account. You get an expense account.
We did have expense accounts.
Was it like?
They paid for cars, phones, utilities of your house, like just crazy stuff.
You were never a partier though, were you?
Believe it or not, in college and shortly thereafter, I had a friend back then that we were doing Greek parties, and we were throwing Greek parties in Astoria in New York City. So there was some of that promotion in there.
Oh yeah.
But I was more on the entrepreneurial side. I wasn't necessarily didn't have the desire to go out and party, get drunk, and buy bottles.
Did you
But I
have?
figured, let me capitalize on that.
So you had a girlfriend at that time?
Same girl.
Wow.
Yeah,
Bro,
I met her freshman year in college.
You were an unbelievably disciplined man, because a less disciplined man in your position could have done some wild stuff. So but that says a lot about who you are and how you run your business, and it all makes sense. Because as much as like you and I know each other, I'm peeling back the layers right now in front of the entire world.
Fantastic.
Who's listening and seeing this? So you're on the top of your game, and then the market crashes. Tell me about that experience.
So those days, we're basically going into the office and watching a website called ML Implode. And it was basically mortgagelenderimplode.com. And
this is a real thing.
Every day, I swear to God, you may even be able to Google it and see if it still exists. And it just posted. And every day, 1, 2, 3 different banks were listed. And then finally, Greenpoint came around at like 300 something.
Wow!
Yeah. And I think that's...
Wait, is Greenpoint gone?
Greenpoint was purchased by Capital One. So we did have a short stint as Capital One, but they made the product essentially impossible to move because they didn't want to lend on it. They were critiquing everything. So even though you were employed 1099, you couldn't sell anything. So, I mean, it was really... Yeah, there's nothing there.
Wow.
Yeah. And I guess it came up as Greenpoint or Capital One or one or the other. I don't remember.
I think so. Basically, all the big banks that dissolved were forced to be taken over by other banks, right? Is that like how that worked? Because that's what it seems like.
I'm not sure. I mean, Greenpoint was sold to Capital One. I believe it may have. It was. They kept. It was sold to North Fork Bank.
Okay.
But the wholesale mortgage side was a national brand. On the wholesale side between mortgage guys. So rather than trying to rebrand in California Greenpoint as North Fork,
got it.
Nobody knew what that was. So they just kept the Greenpoint name on that side.
One of my professors who's actually on the podcast, James Salinger, he gets hired. He got hired by the FDIC to dissolve banks. So he was on it. Bro, you want to talk about gangster? But especially at that time, so he was. And he said if it ever happens again, he's going to be completely mobbed because all the guys that did that are really old now because that hasn't happened in 10 years.
Sure.
And he was like a baby doing it then, and all the guys were much older. Mm-hmm. But he just talked about the process of what it was like at that point in time to dissolve banks and go through all that whole shit. It was crazy.
Right. I mean, I didn't look into the nitty gritty at that point. You got kind of have the rug pulled out from under you, and you're trying to figure out, hey, what's my next move?
Of course,
I wanted to get engaged, and I'm like, you got a severance package, and like, I have no income. I'm not going to support
the world was falling apart.
Exactly.
Like, it was a crazy time. I remember it. It was like it was a crazy time. So you're obviously you like real estate, so you thought to yourself, no one's buying or selling houses. Let's become a realtor.
You know what? I had the license and I parked it.
Oh, okay.
I got the license in 08, but I basically kind of parked it. But it allowed me to learn how to build business in tough times.
Okay.
And, of course, they always say, like,
were you doing resi at that point or commercial?
It was resi with just a little commercial from family property.
Okay.
And residential, like, I did it because I made money doing it. Mm-hmm. But it was boring.
It's fast money, though.
It's quicker than commercial, 100%.
Commercial
but the deals are always the same.
Okay.
It's always very cookie cutter. With commercial, especially on the leasing side, it's a give and take. An LOI could be, 2 pages, 20, 30, 40 bullet points. I mean, you're negotiating a whole slew of things.
Yeah.
And not any one deal is the same.
Do you like the art of negotiation? Is that
100%.
What? So obviously you got into the residential because again, it's quick money. It's what you know. It makes sense. So how did you get into how did you ultimately transition commercial? And then I want to talk about that a little bit.
So, because I had a little bit of experience with some family property, and at the same time, I learned construction through that because we had some old tenants that did leave, and they folded up after the crash. And I went into, I was demoing, I think it was like 2009, I was demoing a butcher shop in Seacliff that was there from the dawn of time. The building was built in the 20s, and this thing was there from maybe like the 40s. I'm physically manually learning how to do all this stuff as well. And I learned electric. I learned how, we had 3-phase Delta high leg. in the building, and the electrician that was there at the time didn't even know what a Delta High leg was. So I'm really just kind of getting a real hands-on education from HVAC, electric, plumbing, and then of course the structure and the roofing and whatnot. And we basically started leasing out these spaces, made vanilla boxes, and I started learning from that. So then, since I had a little bit of experience, I was in a residential office, and one person asked for a little bit of help. Did a small deal here, did a small deal there, and slowly kind of started building up.
So, let me stop you there for a second. Going back to the commercial purchase. So, you were making money in the mortgage industry, and you did the smart thing, which is you went and bought real estate.
Okay, so my father bought that property, that building, and I said, because he was working full time, couldn't manage it. So I essentially am managing this thing for him, and as time has evolved, I'm essentially taking over the property.
Nice.
Right.
Now, when you guys bought that, did you have any like real estate evaluation experience? Was it just like right place, right time? Market had like just totally slid?
Kind of. I think it was right place, right time.
Yeah.
My father's has cousins that when they came over from Greece, these guys, they started one building, bought a second one. Next thing you know, these guys have empires right now.
Yeah.
And I think he just kind of wanted to get a little bit of that, and for the future, for investment, for retirement, etc. So he bought that, and that was kind of like he's keeping that as his baby, but I'm taking care of it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, that makes sense. I mean, you're in the space, you're in the field, in the street.
And I've through all this experience now at this point, I've learned how to vet people fairly well. Since 2009, I could say that we haven't had any vacancy, really, other than one tenant that we had a disagreement with. But they didn't leave because they weren't doing well.
So little by little, you basically transitioned from residential to full-time commercial.
Correct.
Okay.
Correct.
So what I want to touch on now is, because I know, for everybody out there, there's 30,000 agents listed on LIBOR.
Okay.
Half of them have never done a deal, period.
Wow.
And from what I understand, there's only approximately 300 dedicated commercial agents on Long Island.
That's what I've heard.
And of those, how many would you say really do deals? 50?
I really don't know. I don't know the figures, but I do find myself dealing with the same people over and over again.
Over and over.
Correct.
And over again. So I know a lot of, you did it the smart way, the way that makes sense. The way that I started investing in real estate to scale up, you started at a certain point, we're making money, and then transitioned. Because there's a lot of talk out there with people you'll see these gurus quit your job, just do this, just go into whatever your passion is. Yo, listen, that shit ain't realistic.
No, it's not.
You have to pay bills and stuff.
Especially in New York, especially on Long Island, the cost of life is expensive.
So
if you eliminate that like I did,
yeah.
where I had my wife as a base for the first few years, kind of helped get my feet on the ground.
Nice.
At that point, we didn't have to worry about health insurance. You didn't have to worry about, paying for a roof over your head or whatever, the car payments or whatever. That's a huge relief of pressure, especially when we're dealing with clients. You don't come off pushy. You don't come off needy. You could give honest feedback, build a relationship with your client where you're giving honest feedback. And you know what? If that deal's not for them, you don't try and sweet talk them into it, yes it to death, and then you're gone. You got to build. I have clients that are repeat business, and that's what's nice about commercial, because you build that relationship with people.
The commercial world operates very, very differently than the residential world. The thing that I want to talk about is there's a lot of, I'm not going to say there's a lot, but there's really good residential agents who come to me and they're like, I would love to get involved in commercial, but you have to know what you're doing.
1,000%.
What is your advice or process for residential agents or anybody who's looking to get into the commercial space? I mean, across the country, basically.
I mean, I don't know about across the country, but definitely here you've got to know your product. You have to understand zoning.
But how do you acquire the knowledge is really what people want to know.
You got to do a lot of reading, a lot of homework, a lot of reading, a lot of, you speak with architects, expediters, learn
Captain Permit.
Correct. learn your marketplace and understand what, you have to understand. A lot of the buildings were built sometimes before the zoning code. Or the zoning code is very antiquated, and businesses have evolved. They don't have dog groomers or doggy playhouses or whatever those things are as in the zoning code. So and these guys want to go into industrial areas, which is fine, and usually that's somewhat permitted based on square footage and parking and whatnot, as always. And but nothing's very cookie cutter, and so you have to work your plan examiners and your architects to really get a good.
So explain to people why. Like, I understand where you're going with that, but explain to people why, as a commercial broker, why understanding zoning, parking requirements, etc., permitted uses is such an important thing.
Especially on the landlord rep side, which we do a lot of, and on the tenant rep, you want to make sure that where you're making this deal, it will work. Yeah. Because otherwise, when you're trying to go through some of these townships, you're going to be wasting sometimes 6 months to a year. And if this is just not going to fit, you should be able to kind of rule out this type of property before you even take them to take the tenant, or if you're repping the landlord, tell the landlord, you know what, this deal or this location really doesn't make sense for you. They're going to destroy your parking lot, and then you have 2 or 3 other stores that are empty or will be coming empty. What kind of use are you going to put there? The retail landscape has changed. It's not so much. If it fits on a box and it ships, you're competing with Amazon. You're competing with a lot of these online retailers. So now everything retail-wise is very service-oriented. You're creating a reason to come in. That's why you see a lot more restaurants, different dynamics coming into play.
Talk about that a little bit more, about how, because you do a lot of retail leasing.
Yes.
So, you'll go everywhere on Long Island, but like your real sweet spot is, the North Shore, Northern Boulevard, I would say, better than anybody else.
Yeah. Northern Boulevard is to me, I guess, really what Jericho Turnpike was to Mike Murphy. He built his business off Jericho Turnpike in Smithtown.
Oh yeah, that's right. I remember the time.
And listen, I did some homework on you yesterday. I played a lot of podcasts. So I've got a lot of stuff on Northern Boulevard between retail and also office space. So I'm representing 4 office buildings along the side of Northern, right next to Peter Luger.
Okay.
We've got a few. We redeveloped a shopping center across the street from Beaner Audi. Okay. We actually had a deal there with a mattress firm, but they, during the build-out process, pulled out for unforeseeable reasons.
So let me ask you a question. How do you see the landscape of retail changing? Is it harder for you as a broker to lease retail space? Is good retail still leasing, and what are the things to look for as an investor to be like, oh, this is good retail?
Good retail is still leasing, but the prices have adjusted. I've noticed from 06, 07 to today, locations on Northern, prime locations that I would have had the phone ringing off the hook, has slowed down dramatically. Okay. And the prices people are willing to pay have dropped. And they will hold out. So I am dealing with national tenants on some of these locations that came to us a year ago. And now we're revisiting 6-8 months later saying, hey, that's still empty. And now they're offering less.
Why do you think that is? You think they have more options?
There's a lot more options now.
Now, are these, obviously we don't need to know the exact names, but like when you say retail, we're talking retail. We're not talking medical. We're talking straight
retail, showcases, etc. And then they provide a product that needs to be tangible, not food. Okay. It needs to be tangible. Some of it's in the home business and whatnot. Yeah. But people like to feel things. They want to look at whatever it is that they're. I don't want to give out too much information.
No, that's fine. No, I understand.
It's something that really, if you're doing something more on the designer side, on the luxury homes, you want to be able to tangibly feel the product that you're buying.
Yeah, no, that makes sense. I know Amazon's trying to do some funky thing with furniture right now, but furniture is like one of those things where like you want to see it, you want to feel it.
1,000%, and that's one of like my trophy pieces on Northern Boulevard, and was the old Landmark Diner, which is now Rocher Boudoir. We tore down that diner.
Nice.
And we, my partner and I brokered a deal with Rocher Boudoir for the owners. And there was, Rocher had their own broker representing them, and we, from scratch, designed this building directly across, it's on a diagonal to the Americana.
That's North Hempstead, right?
North Hempstead. No, I'm sorry, that one is actually the village of Flower Hill.
Oh, okay.
Talk about getting lucky.
So that was easy. What's a sick building over there that I think was an old car dealership, but they repositioned?
All House is right behind us.
Yes, that place is dope.
Gorgeous.
Bro, I
Beautiful
walk in
place.
that place and I'm just like, this place is sick. You got to sell a shit ton of furniture to pay this bill. Like, this,
It's a big nut.
the
every
property
month.
is huge. Were you involved in that deal?
I was not. No.
So, and one of these things about having to really, really know your market, like, just for shits and giggles, I've gone on CoStar and I've looked at, like, tried to pull whatever, like, comps around that area. And there's, like, a stretch where the numbers are huge.
Massive.
And then you, like, cross, like, a line and it's like, it just falls off, like, to, like, a third of what it was.
Absolutely. To me, it's basically, if you go from, say, like, with Brian Cooper-ish area, right? And you go west, they're trying to, that's, as you approach the Americana, that's where they're trying to get really, really big numbers. There's a new development there that's asking, big numbers there.
That's the one on the corner?
The new development is right next door to Limani.
Okay, no, I don't know.
Okay, that one's just a steel frame right now. But they're,
Are they pre-leased at all or no?
They have the upstairs leased and half of the ground floor. So there's one more space in there.
Do you know did the leasing take place prior to permit award or after groundbreaking or after permits? Do you happen to know? There's a selfish reason why I'm asking you this.
I believe it was actually, one of them, because they did visit me a while back in one of my locations. I believe it was pre-permit.
Okay. Yeah, because I'm doing that gas station on, North Broadway. And originally I was going to knock it down and build 7,200 square feet, and then with 5 per thousand parking for a medical.
Is this the warehouse we were talking about?
Yeah, this is the one we're talking about. Yeah,
I didn't know it was a service station before.
It was originally a gas station, like back in the 40s, and then it turned into a mechanic shop, and they got rid of the tanks, right? But it still has issues and has environmental issues that need to be cleaned up.
No.
But I always thought, I'm going to knock it down, build 7,200 square feet, 5 per thousand parking, push for medical use. It's on Medical Row right there on a corner. It's great. Then the more I got into it, the more I'm like, you know what? The building's like really cool looking and retro. I'm like, I'm going to keep the existing 4,000 square feet and do 10 per thousand parking.
Right.
Now, I have a general frustration, which we'll talk about in a minute, which we've talked about before with the commercial world in general and how it operates. But the one thing that the broker that's repping me on this said that I actually believe, and I want to get your feedback on this, is he's like, bro, you don't have permits yet. You don't even have anything filed for it yet. It is very hard for someone to commit to you because they don't know what your time frame is going to be. And a lot of these people, especially in the medical world, not so much the retail world, they have an immediate need.
He's right. It's very hard to try to rent something out that is just conceptualized on paper, and it's either a piece of dirt or a dilapidated building. And it depends on, especially on the medical side, they usually do have an immediate need.
Yeah.
Doctors do not, they're worried about taking care of patients. They're not worried about, and then they realize, oh, my lease is running out.
I need new space.
Or I need to renew, or I need to do something, right? They're not concerned about a real estate, I guess, as much as, the retail side, or, that's where they're going to see opportunity.
I want you to kind of educate the people out there a little bit in the sense that I want you to just go over a few, like 3 or 4 basic terms that you use in your everyday life in commercial real estate. Like, I'll give you an example, like cap rate, price per square foot, modified gross, triple net. Like, there's a lot of like residential agents that are like unfamiliar with these terms and what they mean, but they're everyday for you. TI, work letter, etc.
Exactly. I mean, these are normal conversations that we have every day with clients. Depending on who I'm representing, is the term. I mean, I have clients that I'm doing storefront deals at the same time they're looking to buy property, and so the conversation switches from I need $20, $30, $50 a foot TI to I want to get X amount in return. Find me this opportunity. Some people want the add value, right? Add value is also something that gives you the opportunity to increase your equity.
Explain to people what TI is. Like, if you have an office building and a tenant's going to move in, what is TI? How does it work?
Well, tenant improvement, we do a lot on the retail side. On the office building, a lot of times, depending on where you are, landlords are going to custom build your space if you give them a 5-year lease. And, it's within reason. They're not putting in glass walls. They're not putting in marble floors. They're going to give you basic carpeting and sheetrock walls. TI on the retail side, once again, it's depending on who the tenant is. So a lot of times the tenant will take the space and any leasehold improvements that are going to be done specifically to better the building itself and not necessarily benefit just the tenant is something that the landlord will then cut a check back to after, say, 20 or 30 days from a receipt given back to the landlord.
This is something that I learned not that long ago, which is like super fascinating to me, about the leasing structure as far as a broker. Like, people are very confused as to if you lease a space for 10 years, how does the commission work? Like, how do agents get paid on that kind of stuff?
Okay, so standard commission is 7s and 3s. 7s and 3s essentially breaks down on a 10-year lease. Your first 3 years of lease payment are going to be at 7% of the base rent. And then the remaining 7 years are at 3% per year. And that is a structure that's, with your increases, you work it out on Excel, and, that's paid up front. Now, that upfront payment, though, of course, is not necessarily at lease signing. Sometimes a tenant needs to get a permit, right? They need to do their build-outs, or they need to get a variance to operate their business. So then that amount will be broken down based upon, say, issuance of permit or approval from the building department, so that at that point the lease is hard. If you're putting a restaurant, for instance, in a retail space, you need to get approval to operate that use, have the seating, etc. If the town says no, why is the landlord's not going to pay you a commission? We try to make it happen. If it works, it works. If it doesn't, it doesn't. Once again, very important to understand zoning. Will a restaurant work in this location, or am I just wasting my time? What are my challenges? Do I have off-street parking? Am I really only working with the parking that's on the street?
Are there certain? I don't know the answer to this, and I feel like I should because I am Captain Permit. Are there? If you want to operate a restaurant, what are the parking requirements? Do you know? Every township is different?
Every township's different. They have seating guidelines. Once again, you kind of have to do some of this homework beforehand. And that's the challenge with Long Island, is that, you've got so many different, building departments. And then within those building departments, you have in little villages. And their building departments override the larger building department.
It's freaking crazy.
Yeah. And so, you sometimes, everyone as I was getting into the commercial side, everyone will tell me, no, the villages are the worst. You don't want to work in a village. I have to tell you, I through experience,
I think they're the easiest.
They're the best.
Yeah.
You're dealing with one or two people.
Yep.
There's no questions about what the code is. Everything is straightforward. You follow the rules, and you move on with your way. I mean, there's no waiting game. You're not waiting 3 to 4 months just to have the town of North Hempstead open your file and say no.
Obviously, that's a sore spot for you.
Yeah.
I know that. And you grew up in the town of North Hempstead.
I did.
It's just not all building department. None of this shit's easy.
No, nothing's easy. And, the building departments just add another hurdle that you have to go through. And of course, as a broker, that just pushes off your payments, right? So you have to build your pipeline. You've got to build to be successful, to earn a living, right?
So obviously, this is all negotiable, and I guess that's the great thing about commercial real estate is there are no rules really. Like, every deal is completely different, which is, and obviously if you're someone like yourself who's very good at negotiating, it's what you thrive on. Yeah, I memean,
getting an accepted LOI, I mean, to me, is equal to some people like the Yankees winning the World Series. I mean, I love it, and it gets me excited and jazzed up and ready for the next one.
So you're a really busy guy. I mean, you have 2 boys, right?
Yes.
We obviously know how you got them by being very respectful to women. And you have a wife who has a serious job.
Yes.
And you are basically commercial real estate. I don't know if this is an illusion. I'll ask you this. A lot of people have the perception of commercial real estate as being a more Monday through Friday, 9 to 5 type of gig that allows realtors to have a normal kind of corporate life. Is that true or not so much? And then how do you balance all that?
It is and it isn't, and I'm really bad with the balancing, and my wife will tell you that. Thankfully, she's very supportive, very strong.
And she's a therapist, so she truly understands
that's
you.
the running joke, is that...
Do you feel like you're being psychoanalyzed all the time?
I'm the PhD study. That's the running joke. But it does allow you to breathe because you can't just get into some of these buildings on the weekends. And of course, people who are business minded, of course, everyone kind of wants a day off at the end of the week, right?
Yeah.
But because you do work for yourself, I'll find myself either in my office at home or at the kitchen table, or I'll run into the office in Manasa, and I'll spend half the morning there or half the day there, just either catching up or trying to plan from ahead or doing the due diligence and homework I need to for the landlord's attendants to be productive the following week.
I want to talk about, if for anybody out there who's looking to get into commercial real estate brokerage, whether it's here or anywhere else, if you're a residential agent, you're trying to make the transition, what advice do you have for them? What's the roadmap for them in your opinion?
I don't necessarily have a clear-cut roadmap. I will tell you that my manager in the Manhasset office has been extremely supportive. He's always stressed keeping a portion of residential business.
Really?
And the purpose behind that is more or less also just keep the wheels greased, right? Keep that cash flow coming in so that you can work on your other projects. And then going back to that landmark deal, that took 4 years.
Yeah.
That's not something you do overnight. And there was months that absolutely nothing happened. There was months that it literally consumed every day.
Yeah.
Between going to the city to visit these guys, it was, and they're an international company. They're based out of France. That's the tenant.
4 years.
That took about 4 years from the very start, because we actually started at a building 2 doors down, and then brought that same concept, just jacked up the square footage and the price, 2 stores closer to the Americana. So having at least still being able to earn some, an income while working on the bigger project.
That's interesting that it's very, very smart, because you need, in every business, I feel like you need a mix.
Correct. You can't have all your eggs in one basket. You got to kind of diversify.
Yeah,
and he's been very good about drilling that home to me.
Very smart.
He tells me that even to this day.
No, it's very smart, because when I look at my current operation, I see, all right, transitioning into the commercial. At the same time, I still need to do the houses in order to fill the gaps and have that cash flow constantly coming in, because the bigger deals take years.
That's right.
Years, crazy amounts of years sometimes.
Absolutely.
So, you need something to pay the bills in the meantime.
Right.
And in a business like ours, it gets a little nerve-wracking, because it's very market dependent. Correct.
And you got to set yourself up for that upcoming cycle. And you want to try and take advantage of it, being that you're in the business.
And it's
that's another thing that's always on my mind is, I want to have enough reserves ready to go so I can jump on an opportunity when the market's not doing well.
So let me ask you this question, because this kind of brings up something a little bit interesting. So I understand what your broker's saying, and I think it's very smart. At the same time, when you're in the commercial world and you're dealing with landlords, they're seem to be a very different breed than your average homeowner, obviously.
1,000%.
So how do landlords and developers look at agents who do both? Do you think they care? I have no
I don't necessarily think some do. I don't think a majority really care. They're viewing, I guess, more entrepreneurial, thinking that, hey, listen, you still got to earn a living, yet you're focused here during the week. Residential is more or less on the weekend, right? Yeah. So, since we're not doing anything on the weekend, rather than me sitting around on the couch watching TV, let me go sell a house and make 10, 20 grand.
I think what you do is brilliant. That makes perfect sense to me. You need the short-term pay and then the big long-term hits.
Exactly. And what's great is especially on the commercial side, I've sold a lot of my commercial clients their homes, or sold their homes for them. So because you build these relationships and you're there for such a long time, and so there's a trust. And why not carry it over to your house, where you're going to bring somebody in that's going to be you're inviting somebody into your home. You want to trust them, right? So it's a good mix.
No, that makes perfect sense.
At this point, 90% of my business is on the commercial side.
Okay. And so there's a couple more things I want to talk about. One is, for me, if I'm a broker, knowing that I've made it is when you get to be the exclusive rep for certain companies. Now, I know that you are. Whether or not you want to share that is a different ballgame, but you're welcome to plug away on the Handsome Homebuyer podcast. So I mean, that says a lot. When you have a company that is growing and says to you, Chris, you're my guy.
Yeah.
There's nobody else.
Yeah, and it is rewarding, but you are now saddled with a huge responsibility. And you got to sit down with them, understand the corporate culture, lay out a rollout strategy, where we're going to go, what we're going to do, and how we're going to do it. And I've been having these discussions and work exclusively with 4-5.
For those of you who haven't been to 4-5, it's fucking awesome.
That's where we first met.
Yes. And my girlfriend actually took me there. She said, we got to go to this place. I hear it's freaking amazing. We went there. It's awesome.
Great place.
How would you describe it?
It's a cafe for us. It's built for our generation, our mindset, but it's not overly hipster.
Yeah.
Right? It doesn't have that hipster vibe. It's not the food is always great and it's different.
It is very cool. And talk a little bit about like they source the bean. Like they started out wholesaling beans, right?
They're predominantly a wholesale business, and so they supply, wholesale to Facebook, Instagram, Convene, or they have a strategic relationship with Convene where they have their stores in the Convene locations.
Wow!
So they've got 29 locations right now, slated for 54 by the end of next year, and looking to roll out 200.
Dude, Convene is crazy. At school, we did I read a case study about Convene and how it came together, out of their sessions with subletting space and all that. It's a crazy business model.
Yes.
I didn't know that they were hooked in with them.
Yes, they are.
Wow.
Yeah. So it's an excellent group of guys. They our age too.
Yeah.
Stefano is 37 years old.
What made them decide to switch from that wholesale model and kind of integrate a retail?
Don't really want to speak for them. I'm not 100% sure, but I do believe they had a few strategic opportunities that gave them the go-ahead to go ahead and do it.
Wow.
Yeah. So they got their footing comfortable and they built out a beautiful place and they just kept going with it.
But that's awesome.
So Manasa is really the flagship store.
Okay. Got it. But that's like, to me, that's when you know that you've really made it as a commercial broker, when you have people like that,
Right.
tenants that are looking to grow or national tenants that are looking to expand, and they want you to be the exclusive rep.
Right.
Which comes with a lot of responsibility. One of the reasons why I really...
And a lot, you feel a lot of responsibility. God forbid that store doesn't do well in that location.
Yeah.
That burden is on my shoulders.
No,
so you've got to make sure that
you got to know your shit.
You can't yes anybody to death. You got to be in it for the long term, and we're approached with properties all the time. Which listen. Some of them look great on paper, everything looks conceptually good, and then sometimes you have to make this judgment call. Like, is this going to fit here? And is the atmosphere, the demographics, are the people going to support us here?
Real estate is really as much an art as it is a science, and we all know this. I have a general frustration with the commercial world, and one of the reasons why you're here is because I think you are an excellent broker. A lot of guys I call don't call me back, things like that. Like, you're very receptive. You always get back. You always give feedback. You're always open and honest. You're always out there hustling for your clients. So you're in like that top 1% of agents in the commercial space, in my opinion. But that's not how the space operates as a whole. And it just it frustrates the shit out of me.
It frustrates me too, especially when you can't get a call back and you're trying to get your client into the space.
So it's like, why is it like this? And how the fuck do we change this?
I
knew I was going to hit you with that at some point.
I know.
This shit is coming. Charles is angry.
I should have said this is one of the things I don't want to talk about. I don't know how to fix it. Other than me just continuing to work harder and just making sure I'm either get through to the landlord at that point.
Yeah.
Maybe sometimes the broker's just not involved with it anymore. There's no clear cut answer.
Yeah, it's just crazy. But for me, I feel there's got to be a change. If not us, who? If not now, when? But we don't have to talk about that anymore. You're a very young guy. You're 37?
37.
You have a long career left of you, a lot of life left in you. What's the future of Chris Babyface Pappas look like post heavyweight title?
I'd like to get more, of course. More rentals, more out-of-state rentals. Maybe travel more into the South. and just trying to create some add value to these properties, increase the rent rolls, whatnot. But just
you want to get more into the investing side.
More into the investing side, and broker for the people that I want to work for, and be more. I've gotten to the point that I can be selective.
Nice.
But I want to be more selective, and I don't want to have to necessarily have a jam-packed schedule every single day of the week. You want to be able to dial back a little bit. My kids are young. I got a 4-year-old and a 4.5-month-old. So right now, some sleep in the future would be nice. But I will tell you that my wife has been a champion, and she is she's the one taking the hits right now, and allows me to actually get some rest to work. Because I can't sleep. You can't be asleep during the day.
Women are so much tougher than men are.
Oh, 100%.
I'm so happy.
I would be a complete train wreck if I went home and she wasn't there. I'd be a mess, and she knows it.
God, that's beautiful, though, man.
It is.
I like that.
It is.
It's cool that you guys have that kind of relationship, and you've had it for such an extended period
teamwork,
of time.
Right?
Yeah, and you when you talk about it, you still have that glow. So if she listens to this, and if she sees this, she's gonna see the glow that I'm seeing.
I'm not gonna be in the doghouse.
Nice. I really appreciate you coming down, man. You're the fucking man. I have a ton of respect for you. You're doing a great job. You're one of the good ones.
Thank you.
Anybody needs to get in touch with you as far as if you're a landlord, if you're a tenant, anybody in the commercial real estate space, how do they get a hold of you? How do they follow you on social media, etc.?
Instagram, Chris Pappas Broker, cell phone 516-659-6508.
All right, and obviously, if you need plans, if you need permits, if you're having a problem in North Hempstead and you need to get out of it, I promise it's not going to be cheap. I promise it's going to be painful, but the captain's always got you back. 516-513-8838. If you have anything real estate related, I want to buy it. 516-777-SOLD. You can follow me on IG at Handsome, that's right, you know it, _Homebuyer, Facebook, Charles Weinraub, Handsome Homebuyer, anything. I'm all over the place. Check out the YouTube channel. Tons of great lessons for people. Hit that subscribe button. I'm out.
Orgulloso estoy de mi herencia judía. Benjamín Leven Shlomo cuando me llama